Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I'm your host, founder of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the show. It's amazing where we're at as an organization, as a show, the numbers that we are starting to now draw. Uh, it's just truly incredible. And uh, we only have you to thank, our loyal viewers, listeners, uh, giving us those big thumbs up, those shares, those likes, those subscribes, those comments. It's because of you that we're here. We are we're really gonna hit 300 total episodes in and out of the studio combined here. And that's going to happen sooner rather than later. It's going to happen well before the end of calendar year 2025. And it's just incredible. We uh, are just at a at a speed of researching, synthesizing, and sharing information, data, events, stories, and they all come back to being facts and facts that we believe in good faith are just that. We are uh, today and every day grateful for the United States Constitution, for ourselves that are U.S. citizens here in the United States, just as well as if you are tuning in from somewhere other than the United States. There are protections and liberties uh, that are afforded to you in your native and home country, home territory, and and so with us, with that U.S. Constitution, with especially that First Amendment, the free speech, right to free speech, being able to talk freely about some of the hardest topics to talk about, to hear about, to hear individual stories and experiences, as difficult as that is, that may be. Uh, we wouldn't be able to do that without the First Amendment. We would not be able to share some of the content, uh, because there could be, interpretations that uh, individuals may make, but that's not the case because we do have the U.S. Constitution. We do have the First Amendment. So I digress from where we're not to where we are, and so we're at a place where we do have the U.S. Constitution. Some individuals like to not use it, not abide by it. We're not one of those people, not one of those organizations. We believe in free speech. Uh, People that don't like us, that don't like the content we produce, the stories. As I've said before, I'll say it again, and I'll say it again. If you don't like the content, if you don't like what's being shared, then change the channel. Find somewhere else to spend your time. Why are you spending your time here? That's the last thing I would do, is to spend my time, the limited amount of time that we all have on this earth, watching or listening to content that I don't agree with for whatever reason. So I invite anybody. I would rather have people that are truly for the for the cause, for the movement, the voices for voices, and have a very small amount of followers any day of the week, any time of day, any time of year, than to have some inflated numbers that include people that just wanna be, a hater on Voices for Voices. So again, turn the page, change the channel. There's a lot of shows out there, a lot of shows, a lot of different viewpoints. So I invite you, if that's you, just do us all a favor. Spend your time more wisely. Stop watching us. Stop listening to us. Your body will probably be a lot less stressed because of this. Because I don't want inflated numbers. I don't want people watching and listening that have these, uh, I don't even know the right term, but they're just not interested in the true voices for voices and who we are and where we've come from and where we're at now and where we're going. Uh, and so again, I invite you to turn the page, change channel, change shows. Don't include voices for voices in your media organization consumption. That would really help both of us out because we've been made aware of quite a few individuals that are falling into that bucket. And so again, I invite you down the road as I have in the past. If the content bothers you so much, turn the channel. I don't want you here. I don't want people here that are just gonna hate and they're not gonna like things. They're not gonna like facts when they're shown to them, when it can be, it mostly is your own words or your own social media posts or your own interviews where again, we're talking about individuals that I don't know. They they're not individuals that any of us should want to strive to be. We we shouldn't. We strive to be good people, honorable people, honest people, truthful people, care for our fellow human beings. That's where we're coming from at Voices for Voices. And so we share, if we expose information, of course there are going to be people that don't like it, but I didn't type it. I didn't take the photo. I didn't post it. I didn't sit for the interview. I didn't have what's called implied consent, or I could have ended something, and yet I continued to talk. That's not on Voices for Voices. That's not on Justin Allen Hayes. That's not on anybody. That's on you, brothers and sisters out there. So again, if you don't like that, change the channel and maybe look at your own behavior and maybe look at modifying that. That's probably going to do you the best in the long run. Because love us, hate us, whatever terms you want to use, that's that's who we are, and we're advocates. And we talk, we share, we make people aware. And that's what an advocate does. Any advocate, any kind of an advocate. We're trying to help people. We're not trying to hurt people. For people who have been through just some very, very, very not good conditions, not good experiences, you're darn right we're going to share those. You're darn right we're going to share experiences with people because they're going to continue to be a light and lights for others to step forward, to say to the others who may be very in a similar position, maybe don't want to talk about things or don't want to step out of the shadows, by individuals stepping forward and stepping out of the shadows and sharing, they're going to help at least one person. And by helping one person, regardless of how we do it, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else involved with the organization, whether it's a past guest, a current guest, a future guest, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is we're helping others. And so if your idea of helping others is really not helping others and includes actions that are more in line with the opposite of helping, again, turn that page. Go to that next donut shop. If you're looking for glazed donuts and they're not glazed donuts at the donut shop you're going to, don't sit and bicker and argue and throw a tantrum because the donut shop you're at doesn't have glazed donuts. Stop wasting your time. Stop wasting the manager or the individuals that are working. Stop wasting everybody's time and go to another donut shop until you find what you're looking for. Same thing with the show. Instead of being all upset and again, there's gonna be some information, some things that uh, are gonna be just say available here at some point in time. And I'm not gonna share what those are, when that's gonna be, what it's about, because I'm just a lowly advocate. I don't get paid to do this. Spend my own money. I don't have millions like some of you that have chosen a different road, a different route, and are using that for, again, what we may think of some activities and some actions that can be very much looked at as quite the opposite of helping people. And you can use whatever term you want to justify it in your mind. You can say, well, no, I wouldn't call it this. I wouldn't really think of it in that way. Oh, really? You wouldn't? Okay. Well, whatever we want to call what that is, and you viewers and listeners know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're one of these individuals, you know exactly what we're talking about, and you've made decisions on your own. Voices for Voices has not undertaken the types of actions that you have taken and are taking and continue to take and have taken in the past. And so you can try to erase that as much as you think, but God's in charge here, not you, not me. God is. Not what you think it is, not what you're talking to people and wanting to want to tell others that you're the sinless one. Well, you're not. God is the sinless one. Jesus is the sinless one. And having a disability doesn't mean that we did anything against God or Jesus. Some of you are thinking, what in the heck is, what is he talking about? It'll come much more clear, I promise you, sooner rather than later. But for those that do know exactly what I'm talking about, that's who uh, I'm speaking to. So whether you're watching or listening, again, you can pretend that you're doing things in the name of God, and you can pretend things didn't happen. You can pretend that there's not a picture, there's not an article. You can do that. You can pretend. Anybody can pretend, right? We all can pretend. But there will be a time of judgment, and that judgment's not going to be from me, not going to be from Voices for Voices. That's going to be when we're at the gates of heaven. Each and every one of us, we have, and we're falling short. But that's what makes us human. And so to accept that is part of it. I'm not perfect. I'm not gonna tell others or put content together that says or shows otherwise and portray myself to others that I'm that God. So it's not true. And so any of us with any type of disability, ailment, an area that's just been brought to my attention, kind of in the full light, is there's some individuals who think, again, I kind of alluded to it a couple minutes ago, they think people with disabilities or challenges or diseases or whatever, that it's our fault, that we did something wrong. And this is God punishing us because of something that we did. And that can be further from the case, further from the truth. So I would challenge anybody out there who has those beliefs, who's ever one time shared a belief like that, that says, you, you have cancer. You did something wrong. You don't have faith in God. It's your fault that you have cancer, as an example. And there are people, because I would not be bringing this up and spending my time on it if there weren't people that have done this and have said these things and weave it into their, I mean, if you call it teaching, I would, there's some other areas, topics that I might think it better resides in. But you want to call it teaching? Okay, call it teaching. But if that's something you're teaching, that's something you're sharing as a human being, whether somebody's a believer or not, somebody has a disability, a challenge, they most definitely did not do something wrong to have that. And for you, your associates, to have said at one time is one time too many, and we're not going to stand for that. We're just not. This world's made up of over 7 billion people from all corners of the planet. We're not the same. We have differences. We look different. We're taller, we're shorter, hair, no hair, color, religion, no religion. I mean, we're as far as the eye can see. So again, if you're one of these individuals that have, and whether you call it what we're calling that or not, the fact of the matter, if you say anything that's related to somebody did something wrong, which is why they have a disease, or whether, why they have an ailment, a disability, a challenge, um, you know, nobody made you God. So you don't, you don't get to decide that first and foremost. You're not the sinless one. Second, and people should not have to choose between a teaching, you want to call it a teaching, a doctrine, what you, what your church says, instead of the parent. That's also unacceptable in our opinion. We have the good faith that as parents, right, when so somebody's an adult, they're under the care of the parent. They're not under the care of you. They're not under the care of your specific church. You don't get special privileges like that. It's the parents. And for any of you out there who has ever, and I mean ever, tried to that between parent and their children and say, well, you're doing something wrong if you're not spending your time with us at the church, because that means you're going against the Bible. And again, this is sounding pretty extreme, right? Guess what? We had that First Amendment right. First off, second off, this has happened and is happening, which is why we're talking about it. We're not just burning up an episode to talk about something that is way, 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 way in the distance. No, no, no. These things are happening here in the United States of America. Again, we can choose two things as a people. We can say that that activity of coming between parents and the church, the disabilities, the diseases are the fault of the person, that they sin against God, and that's the reason why, and that they don't have faith, or they have little faith, and that's why they have their challenge or disability. Or we could say, you know what? I don't stand for that. And so that's where Voices for Voices is at. We don't stand for that. We don't stand for that attitude. We don't stand for um, any speaker, any individual who thinks it's their thinks it's their job to do these types of things. And we can call these different terms, but I've drilled right down into the details, into the real actions that actually are happening. And it just hurts my heart to no end to know that these things are actually happening and have happened, and not just the one person, more than one person. I try not to get into like specific numbers because then I get grilled on, well, it's not that specific number, then you're wrong. Well, let's just say it's over one. Let's just say it's quite a bit bigger than one per year, per year after year after year. So as I started, I'll end. If you're in any way, shape, or form doing this activity, have been a part of it in the past, and you're not stepping up and coming forward and talking about it and being a part of the answer, then that just means the opposite, that you're part of the problem. Might not like to hear that. I'm just a lowly servant trying to help people for the time that I have left on this earth. And I'm not going to spend my time, my organization's time, and the guests that we bring on our show to in any way, shape, or form intentionally hurt mentally, physically, spiritually, choose the children between the choose between the church and their own parent. So it's pretty straightforward. I think what we stand for, what we're for, what we're against. Call it what you want. But if you're not helping, you're just like hands over the ears, pretending not to hear it. You're a lot closer to the problem than you are the answer. So we want to thank each and every one of you, even if you're tuning in and you want to disagree and say, well, that's not what I'm doing, that's not what we do, and you don't have proof, you don't have evidence. Pretty sure we do. Pretty sure we do. And I'll just throw out one. Nope, I'll throw out a couple. So we had an episode number 266, or we have an episode number 266. It's out where all our episodes are. You can watch it, you can listen to it at your leisure. One of you, actually probably more than one, has accused one of our past guests, saying, well, this guest kidnapped and is trafficking this the stepdad. On episode 266, not my words, not the individual as a past guest of ours, but the person who supposedly was trafficked and kidnapped came on and plain as day, and you can read it in a transcript, you can watch it, you can listen to it. And that Mr. Reimers said he unequivocally has never been kidnapped, never been trafficked by anyone. He comes and goes as he pleases. So that's thing one. Thing two is you, Mr. Bryan Davis, you offered this man money, a lot of money, over 50,000. And I think you know why I said over 50,000. For Mr. Reimers to give the intellectual property, past, present, future, of David Solomon. Again, the amount you offered and have offered, well over $50,000. And I think you and I both know it's in the millions. So what do we call that? We call that a bribe because not we, you are trying to influence decision making, an end game that you want. You want to say that, Mr. Solomon, all your work is mine. It's not yours. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. In good faith, we can say at Voices for Voices that that's not the case. It's not your work. Do your own work. But you did offer to bribe. And it's a pattern, not just Mr. Reimers, uh, as we're gonna get to. The second or third, I forget where I'm at because I'm so fired up about this because we've been told and we've been lectured that we're wrong and there's no evidence. And well, there is. You don't want to call it evidence. You want to call it something else. You don't want to call it bribing. You don't want to call it blackmail. You want to call it what you want, as Taylor Swift would say. And that's not an endorsement of her music, but she has a song where it's like, call it what you want, call it what you will. So, Brian, you can call what you want, what you will. The definition on Wikipedia, Oxford Dictionary, anywhere, it's called bribery and it's called blackmailing. Like trying to influence an election, trying to pay or uh, do things to make it easier to vote for a particular candidate. And so this isn't an election interference or an election bribery. This is taking somebody's hard-earned work that they have done and they are doing, and maybe they decide to do something in the future. I don't know. Uh, and that's a third party, you, Mr. Davis, Mr. Bryan Davis, coming forward and saying, I'm going to give you, Mr. Reimers, well over 50,000 into the millions. If you help me out, I'll give you this money and help you pay down your debts. So we call that bribery, call that blackmail, Mr. Davis. That that's just I'm sure at some point you're a student, you like to learn, and so that's for our students, our individuals out there that if they want to reference some things, well, they can reference that. And so it says it's a pattern of behavior. Well, pattern means more than one thing to me. So just recently, uh, we were made aware of that there's going to be a cyber attack against Voices for Voices. So rumblings here and there. There's going to be a cyber attack coming. It's going to be around the 4th, and it so July 4th came, July 4th went. Part of our infrastructure was not consented to having you, Mr. Davis, or people that work for you, with you, you were not given consent, and you'll never be given consent to touch anything Voices for Voices. I promise you that. So you and or individuals who represent you, and I'll get to how we know that it was you in a minute. Our system, our infrastructure was compromised at some degree. Get some ideas, some thoughts on what you may be looking for. Day or two after, July 4th, it's brought to our attention that uh, the person who wouldn't be known to others outside of a very, very small amount of people. So an individual wouldn't be known to people outside the organization. And it came to our attention from this particular individual. You say, well, how do you say that Brian Davis did the attack? Well, I say that because he offered, and you can correct me, Brian, on the number. It wasn't 50,000. It wasn't 100,000. It wasn't 200, 300, 400, 500. It was in our good faith understanding that you offered this particular individual, just like you offer Mr. Reimer some money for something. What you were offering after you did your cyber attack, you had your people do your cyber attack and got that contact information. You reach out to that person and said, hey, here's $600,000. If, and I'm not gonna share what the outcome or what you were asking for. I'm not gonna give you any more airtime, Brian, because it's just truly, you're breaking the law when you're doing things against people's consent, and you did this against our consent. So in our opinion, you broke the law. You broke the law by your cyber attack. So that's one. Two is you offer this individual 600,000 or thereabouts, around there, more than 50,000. Again, money is 50,000. That's kind of our benchmark. And you'll see that uh, why that amount that I'm bringing up here at some point. So you offered 600,000 to this individual for a particular action. So that's bribery. Individual comes back to you, Brian, and says, no, sorry. Won't do it. And so do you stop there, Brian? No, you don't. You try to find a person's vulnerability until you go back to this individual after they turn down your bribe of $600,000 for a particular action outcome. And you tell this person, well, I know this is an area, this is an, I'm not going to say what the area is. It's none of my, I'm not in the right to be able to share that. I know what it is, um, but that's not for me to share. But what I can tell you is Brian reached back out to this individual and said, I know you're having a vulnerability over here. There's something that I know that you're working through. I can help you. I can help you get whatever you need. So that's also a bribe. And it is our understanding and good faith that both of those offers, those two offers, were both turned down. And so now do you question how we know that you, Mr. Brian Davis, were at the very center of the cyber attack? It's not just a coincidence that these things happen the way they do. It's not just a coincidence you reach out to Mr. Reimers the way you did. That's how you do business. That's how you do things. If you don't get what you want, you try to buy people and buy things. And again, both of those bribes of Mr. Reimers and his other individual were both well above $50,000. Again, it'll be coming soon enough why $50,000, why I've harped on the $50,000. There's a reason why I'm harping on the $50,000. And we'll, when it's the appropriate, when if that appropriate time comes, we'll share exactly that. But yeah, close this out with a bang, right? So if you weren't following us kind of at the beginning and in the middle, pretty sure you follow what I just shared here on the last, 10 minutes or so of this particular episode. And so it's important to share this because Mr. Davis is one of the individuals that said Mr. Solomon was trafficking, had trafficked, had kidnapped his own stepdad, Mr. Reimers. That's why that importance of that individual. And so we'd like to invite you to check out episode 266. Listen with your own ears, read the transcript, plain, plain transcript. There's questions, there's answers, and I kind of just give you this summary. Thank you for joining us, for being a part of Voices for Voices, no matter how small, how big uh, your contribution is. There's no contribution too small, no volunteer is too small, no person that has liked, subscribed, given us a thumbs up, shared, followed, all that to our show. Uh, and if you want to come forward and you want to share your story and your experiences because you want to help others, as Mr. Solomon has, that even just recently he found out of some information that he thought he was the only one that went through a particular situation. And he found that I was wrong. He wasn't the only one. He isn't the only one. And there's more than one other person. They're in the hundreds. And so as Mr. Solomon has and is doing, helping others, so too can you or somebody you know can do also. And you can dictate, how much information we share and that. Um, I'm a sharer, I'm a talker. My psychiatrist says I'm an introvert, but I turn on the extrovertness at times, and I guess this is one of those times. So thank you. I want to say God bless you, whether you're a believer, whether you aren't, whether you're here in the United States or at some point in an area that's not the United States. Uh, God bless America. God bless the world. God bless all humans, past, present, future. And God bless you for taking any amount of time to join the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. We welcome you with open arms anytime that you would like to, or anybody that you know would benefit. We'd love to have you back with us on our next episode. So until next time, be a voice for you or somebody in need, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.